600 wins, 6 Georgia State championships, 16 regional championships, 2-time National Coach of the Year, first team from Georgia to win the City of Palms Classic, the nation's #1 high school tournament, first team in Georgia history to attend the Dick's Sporting Goods National Tournament of Championships. He's produced numerous NBA players and professional basketball players all over the world. It's real basketball talk. It's real help and real life with Coach Doug Lipscomb on the BG Podcast Network. Real Life Basketball is brought to you by the all-new 2018 K900 at Carriage Kia of Woodstock and Gainesville. Buy your new K900 from Carriage Kia and we'll fly you in or come pick you up for delivery. Visit carriagekia.com 24/7, 365 days a year. For America's best deal on the K900, call Chris Stanford directly at 1-866-333-2122. That's 1-866-333-2122.
Probably wondering what you're listening to. That would be right here, Real Life Basketball. We're always keeping it real, always keeping it 100, never 100, but 100. If you ain't keeping it 100, stay from around me. Got a good 40 to 45 minutes worth of nothing but die-hard basketball for all you die-hard basketball fans. Slick Nick Paparelli. Catch him on Twitter at NICKPAPARELLI. And, of course, the legend, the general, the coach, Doug Lipscomb, who's coached just about everybody that's come through this local metro Atlanta area. Then, of course, I'm just merely Deshaun Tate. Coach Doug and then Slick Nick. Coach, how you doing?
Great,
talking
man.
Some playoffs,
good to be here.
Talking some AAU.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to it. You know, I want to see how well our teams are going to keep up going. You know, I already told you before, I'm Boston diehard, ride or die. So let's get to it.
Slick Nick.
It's going good. Life's good. Everything's great. Hawks are going to get a top 5 draft pick. That's awesome. Just looking around, I'm excited for this AAU talk, but what I'm really excited for is for our head coaching our coaching carousel that we have going on in the NBA that will be popping up in the next couple weeks.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because one head coach really, really close to home, and of course the news hit home in the last 24 to 48 hours rather, hit really close to home where the organization in the NBA decided to part ways. You'll find out who that is a little bit later on in the show, as well as a ton of Game 5 recaps and a couple Game 1 preview here, and just some little note taking that we've done with some of our projections and recent projections and different things that we did in order to talk about this NBA playoffs. And last but not least, we brought in Coach Samad Hines at Coach Hines 28 to talk about the Adidas Grassroots AAU circuit that will be coming here to the Metro Atlanta area as well. Without further ado, let's get right over there and bring on my dude, Samad Hines.
Hey, Slick Nick here to talk about Constant Elevation Sports Consultants. They are profound in evaluating any level of any business and athletics. Their blueprint has proven to be successful and has developed many multimillionaires. As Coach Doug Lipscomb always says, they don't work to impress, they work for positive impact.
Here we are. We're back again with our weekly update on the AAU circuit with Coach Samad Hines. How you doing, Coach?
How you doing, sir? Glad to be back on.
Well, we're glad to have you. Go ahead and tell us what you got going on this weekend, or what's the best spots and what's going to be going on, basically.
Yeah, so in Atlanta, we got the Adidas Gauntlet coming down here, all the Adidas teams for Adidas Nations. Got a lot of good top prospects coming down. Basically like EYBL just with Adidas this time in Atlanta. We also have the EYBL Session 2 in Indiana this weekend in Indianapolis. And also on the radar, Hoops is hosting his Sweet 16 Session 2, which is very good for mid-major college coaches to attend. A good bunch of prospects will be at that tournament as well in Atlanta, Georgia.
Coach Hines, Deshaun Tate here. How are you?
How you doing, sir?
Pretty
I'm
good.
good.
Thanks for asking. Inform us a little bit about Game Elite, if you will. I think that there's some people who are maybe not as familiar necessarily with the AAU circuit, including some of the best teams that are in this thing. I mean, who's some of the better teams, the better players to look forward to that we can see right here in the Atlanta metro area? Because me specifically, one of them that I'm somewhat familiar with is a recent Kentucky commit. Talk about him a little bit, and I know that he's playing for Game Elite. Everybody looks, he's the main focal point a lot of times. But outside of him, who's some of the other guys that are notable mentions?
Yeah, for the Game Elite squad, that's a good squad, actually. Coach Williams, who we were just talking today. Looking forward to seeing them this weekend, especially Ashton Hagans, which is ranked number 3 in the 2019 out of the point guards right now. So it'll be good to see him this weekend after seeing Cole Anthony and Jalen LeCue, and then get a little breakdown on all 3 point guards. But besides him on that Game Elite team, I know Jalen Williams, a forward out of Brantland County in Georgia. Yeah, he's a top prospect as well to be on the lookout for. And if you haven't heard already, Josh Nickelberry, the shooting guard out of North Carolina, top-ranked player in the class of 2019, he will be back with Game Elite this weekend and for the rest of the summer. So he'll be a guy to look out for on that Game Elite team as well. And also Kobe Brown out of Alabama, he's on that Game Elite team as well. He'll hold some of the backcourt duties as well with Ashton Hagans and Josh Nickelberry. He's also a top 50 prospect in the ESPN rankings for the class of 2019. So that's just a few guys you can look forward to for that Game Elite squad. There's other players as well coming this weekend, of course. For example, Jalen Green, he's the number 1 player in the class of 2020. Very athletic guard. He gets the crowd all hyped up every time he's on the court, from what I see on the highlight videos. So it'll be my first time seeing him in person since last summer. So I want to definitely see how much better he's gotten. Also, Kyrie Walker, another top 5 2020 prospect out of California. He'll be playing with Dream Vision on the Adidas circuit. He's a very good player as well. Very explosive guard. He'll get the crowd on their feet as well. So a lot of players coming down this weekend for the Adidas Gauntlet circuit at Lake Point Center.
Now, let me say this. I will have a chance to be there in attendance. I'm going to make sure I go and follow you on Twitter for some really good, interesting stuff. I'm going to be tweeting pretty much all throughout the circuit, the showcase itself, as I'm sure that you will. But let me just make sure I throw this out there. First and foremost, I want to make sure, excuse me, that folks know you're listening to Real Life Basketball here with me, Deshaun Tate, Slick Nick Paparelli, and, of course, the legendary, the general, the coach, Mr. Doug Lipscomb, where we keeping it 100 at all times. Talking to Samad Hines, Coach Hines, at Coach Hines 28 at COACHHINES 28, correct?
Yes, sir. Coach Hines. Coach is in HINES 28. That is my Twitter handle. You guys can follow me for all the info nationwide and mostly Georgia as well.
Perfect. I'm glad that you mentioned that because, we're sitting here, we're talking about the AAU circuit, the different showcases that will be coming to the Metro Atlanta area, as well as other people who are listening from other places. Talk to us a little bit about how this particular showcase, the Adidas showcase, measures up with one like the Nike EYBL, who will be here in Atlanta on the 11th through the 13th of May, if I'm not mistaken. How does that measure up? I mean, is this like a Burger King versus McDonald's type deal? Is everybody kind of running running to the McDonald's? And I'm familiar with the Nike EYBL, not as much with Adidas, although I have attended some of their showcases. What is the difference? Break down the difference between the two, and just kind of what the Atlanta area provides for these types of showcases that maybe some of the other cities that these showcases will be at don't necessarily provide.
Yeah, so in my opinion, kind of like you said, it is kind of like a McDonald's Burger King right now. But interesting point here. These next 2 classes actually, because usually in the past, most of the top prospects will probably be in EYBL. But this year it's interesting. In 2020, it's spread out a little bit because we have a lot of top players at the UA, Under Armour, and Adidas, and Nike. Because, for example, the number 8 player in the class of 2020, that's the first player on the Nike circuit. Everyone else and up either plays Adidas or UA. I think besides Scotty Barnes and this other kid. But, yeah, the Nike is, I think it's a better platform. They just give out a better platform. If you ever attend a Nike session, you can see when you just walk in the building, it'll feel like a junior NBA combine. It's just a bunch of great players out there playing from court to court. You turn around, you see a guy dunking on someone behind you. But during your game, you see someone getting crossed. So it's just they have a better platform for Nike here, in my opinion. You see a bunch of stars such as Penny Hardaway when he used to coach his team. Sometimes you'll see NBA players' sons like Scottie Pippen. He'll be there. Kenyon Martin. A bunch of NBA stars and a bunch of famous celebrities sometimes just show up to the EYBL sessions. So that's what I think the difference is with Adidas. Now, Adidas, don't get me wrong, is a good circuit and gauntlet as well. But Nike, I think they're up there still with the best, just how they lay everything out in the environment and atmosphere during their sessions there. That's what I think stands out more, actually, besides the players. Just the environment, just everything. Nike, past players, the banners, schedule, they're a lot organized as well than most of these other circuits and all gauntlets, because they actually do give updates game after game and all type of stats and accurate stats, so which makes it easier to follow as well. So I think that's why people actually look at Nike more, because it's easier to follow and just their platform. That's my opinion.
Coach Lipscomb, I'm going to let you go ahead and ask the next one because I think I got one more to follow up.
Okay, my next question would be where would you tell us where On the Radar is going to be this week?
Yes, On the Radar this weekend, it'll be at McEachern High School and Alatoona. There's some games as well. I've checked the schedule. Those are the only 2 I actually know right now, but the main courts will all be at McEachern High School for the On the Radar Hoops Sweet 16 2 session. That's a good one as well to look at for some type of prospects.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do you have any?
No problem, sir.
You have any idea as to who might be there at the On the Radar Hoops, the Sweet 16 sessions and whatnot? Do you have any notable names per se, or is that just something that kind of will evolve as we get closer?
Yeah, a few names. I actually know that'll be attending there. Mostly on the Radar Hoops. Mostly, it's good for Georgia in Georgia-based AAU programs and just mid-level, mid-majors type of prospects. One name that I can bring up for you. I know the Georgia Stars 10th grade EYBL team will be there, participating in some games in that one. Katie Johnson out of Southwest DeKalb, very elite guard, explosive. He's a real nice guard. I think he'll be one of the top players in the class of 2020 in that loaded class one day. So he's a player to watch out for. He'll be at the On the Radar Hoops event. Also, Marcus Foster out of Drew Charter School. He's a very good junior point guard, 6'4", nice guard that I know of that's going to that as well. Can't think of any other names as of right now, but I do know a few. Just can't pop them in my head as of right now. But that is a good tournament to be at. That's another good under-the-level tournament to also be at as well this weekend.
Talking to Coach Hines, Samad Hines, that is. Catch him on Twitter at Coach Hines, at CoachHines28. My very last question for you. For the Adidas circuit that's going to be taking place in Cartersville, who, if you had to just pinpoint just one name, who's the guy that's underrated? Maybe the name that a lot of people haven't heard of yet, but you can pretty much guarantee that by the end of the summer, he's probably going to catapult. Because I remember a couple of years ago when, Colin Sexton from EYBL was considered probably like a high 3-star, low 4-star, somewhere up in there. And then all of a sudden he exploded at the Peach Jam and then, went on in Olympics and MVP and all types of stuff. Now going to be a lottery pick in a few weeks in June's draft. Who's that guy that's like that dark horse? Not a lot of people know his name just yet. He's going to just kind of fly up the charts. honorable mention type guy right now. Maybe someone who's really underrated, but we'll definitely hear his name quite a bit after the summer is over and moving forward.
Yeah, so a name that popped up in my head, he's on the Atlanta Celtics 16U team. His name is Deshaun Odom, 2020 guard. I think he's very explosive. He's really underrated. Not much people know him as of yet. And speaking of Colin, like Colin didn't have a Twitter, Deshaun does not have one as well, especially that I know of. So I think he'll actually give this summer, he'll be ranked by the end of this summer to me because he's very underrated. He actually showed out at the UC underclassmen All-American game as well. That was at a Wheeler. Got the MVP honors for that game as well. So I know he did it in front of great people such as Paul Bencardi that runs the ESPN ranking. And he has had a great summer already. I already seen him before with his Atlanta Celtics team. I'm going to try to check him out this weekend. But, yeah, I think he's a name that no one really knows as of yet. That'll blow up by the end of this summer. He goes to St. Francis High School. He's a sophomore guard out of St. Francis.
Last question. I'm glad you mentioned the Atlanta Celtics because I hadn't heard much about them this entire season. I mean, AAU season. Mm-hmm. Tell me what's going on with that program.
The Atlanta Celtics program?
Yes.
What do you mean? What's going on about it?
Well, I hadn't heard any top name kids. You just threw out that first kid, that Deshaun Odom kid right there. That's the first time I've heard
okay.
it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Atlanta Celtics, they have a good team. They actually have two teams. One of them, they're split up D favors Celtics, and then it's the Atlanta Celtics, both in the gold division for the Adidas Gauntlet. They have both good teams. I've seen both of them play. The D favors Celtics, though, that's a great team to actually look out for. One of their players that I know of that's underrated as well to me. His name's Brendan Tucker out of Tequila High School, junior point guard. I think he's very underrated. He showed me a lot. I've seen him this summer. Very athletic guard. Kind of reminds me of a Dennis Smith Jr., just maybe not the size-wise, but the athleticism a little bit is there. But that's who he reminds me of, a very bouncy point guard, very fast. He's also a guy that you should look out for as well. He's on the Atlanta Celtics as well. I know they have a great team. D favors Celtics. But the Celtics, yeah, they have pretty good players. I think they'll be okay. They have a bunch of great prospects on both teams and the 16U team, especially and the 15U team as well. I know a guy there, kid there. He's a freshman point guard at Marietta. His name's Travis Burris. I knew this kid since he was in 6th grade. He's been playing up ever since. So he's a kid to look out for too. He's been with the Atlanta Celtics for a while now. So he'll be a guy to look up and to remember in the few years coming.
Okay, good to hear that. Really appreciate you giving Travis a shout out. He's a great kid.
Yes.
I appreciate that information, definitely, Coach Hines. I'm already following you on Twitter. I just went during this interview to make sure I was following you on Twitter. I'm already following you on Twitter, noticing that you've tweeted out that or retweeted that. You know, there's some kids that are one of them being Jalen LeQuay, and then one or two others getting some interest from Indiana, another one from Memphis. So some really interesting talent out there that I want the folks that are listening to this podcast to make sure that they go check out the Adidas Circuit Grassroots, man, in Atlanta. If you're in the local Metro Atlanta area, to go and check that out, as Adidas will be here in Atlanta, man, in the ATL. So I really appreciate you for all your good information.
Oh, no problem, sir. Glad to do it. Glad to be on the show, man. Anytime you guys need me, I'll definitely be on.
Okay, thank you very much, Coach.
No problem, Coach.
Come see the Carriage family and experience the Carriage difference.
Kia is keeping it real with the all-new 2018 K900. Drive the car LeBron James drives and other NBA players call their preferred vehicle of choice. And right now, Carriage Kia of Woodstock and Gainesville has your new K900 ready for delivery. Go online, handle everything, then upon completion, we will fly you in to pick up your new K900 or deliver it directly to you. Call Chris Stanford directly at 1-866-333-2122. That's 1-866-333-2122. Ask for Chris Stanford, Carriage Kia, 24/7, 365 days a year at carriagekia.com.
Come see the Carriage family and experience the Carriage difference.
And you're listening to Real Life Basketball with Slick Nick Paparelli. Catch him on Twitter at Nick Paparelli, NickPaparelli. I know that might be a lot to remember, but he's not only by himself. Of course, the legend, the general, the coach, Mr. Doug Lipscomb, and of course me, just merely old little Deshaun Tate. Right here, Real Life Basketball, 30 minutes flat. So make sure that you guys stay tuned for all of this good basketball talk some NBA playoffs. We also had a chance to catch up with Coach Samad Hines talking about the AAU circuit and showcase for Adidas, the Adidas grassroots that will be in Metro Atlanta this weekend in Cartersville, Georgia. Keeping it real, keeping it 100. If you ain't keeping it real, you ain't keeping it 100. Stay from around me. Stay locked and loaded right here. We got 30 minutes of nothing but basketball action for you. First and foremost, gentlemen, let's go with the general. Let's go with the coach, Doug Lipscomb. How are you?
Great to be here, man. Glad we got another day to look at the things that's going to happen in this league.
Slick Nick Paparelli, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Someone just walked in with a Colin Sexton signed basketball, and I'm a pretty big Alabama fan, so we're all tied to that. We're all tied to Darren Sutherland. I don't think you can catch him on Twitter. I think it's a little past his time, but I'll give him a shout out. Thanks, Darren.
I'll tell you what. I don't know who that is that rode in with the Colin Sexton autographed basketball, but whoever you are, I wouldn't get up and go to the restroom and leave that ball behind, because something tells me Slick Nick might be the reason that basketball is absent by the rest of the day. First and foremost, let's break down this NBA talk. A plethora of Game 5s on yesterday. The Washington Wizards, the Raptors, the Pacers against the Cavs. The Timberwolves, Rockets, 2 pairs of 1s versus 8s. One advances to the second round, and of course the Jazz and the Thunder. All the home teams win yesterday, guys. And if you're a betting man, you're out there in Vegas sports doing the sports book thing, and you went with all the home teams, you went home a pretty lucky man, or you probably stayed out in Vegas and partied quite a bit as a very lucky man. Coach, which of these games popped out at you the most? And why? Which of these games kind of intrigued you the most, or even may have surprised you some?
Well, it really wasn't much of a surprise with Houston, of course. But I tell you, got to love the way that OKC was down and Charles Barkley had counted them out, and they came back. And, I mean, they just showed like they had some fortitude, and they didn't want it to end last night.
Pat.
I'm gonna have to go with LeBron James. I say it kind of low tone because I don't think that was a goaltend, and that surprised me. But him to have just the leadership skills, I heard in the huddle he said, "Give me the ball." That was the play. Gave him the ball, and he sank that 3 and changed that whole series around. It's now feeling like it's a LeBron playoff season again.
Those were the couple of games that took place on Wednesday night. And I'm glad that you guys mentioned those games, because first and foremost, one thing that stuck out at me is Paparelli said, I'm going to have to go with LeBron James. He didn't say the Cleveland Cavaliers. He said LeBron James. And I'm all for that. I support all of that, because the reality is that it is the LeBron James. Like, it should just be considered the LeBron Cavaliers pretty much at this point. A 98-95 win at home, obviously. 44 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, to no surprise. Where the Cleveland Cavaliers won the game. I was impressed a little bit by Domantas Sabonis from Indianapolis, for the Pacers, rather. 22 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, whatnot. We all talked about what would occur and who of these teams that were tied up in a series at 2-2 that could be the most likely to win 4 games and not lose, any more games and win 4-2. And I think that was me and Paparelli, if I'm not mistaken, that we took LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that that's exactly what they needed. I'm not so much sold on the whole goaltending aspect of things, but I think the Indiana Pacers are pretty much dead at this point. You have to take advantage of your opportunities in a tight, close-knit game against LeBron James, and they didn't do that. I think that sunk them on Wednesday night, and I think that that'll sink them in tomorrow as well. Now, the game that Coach mentioned, being the Utah Jazz against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't know what to make of this Oklahoma City Thunder team, just because of the simple fact that the Utah Jazz are not running and hiding. And, there's been so much talk about shutting down Ricky Rubio from the behalf of Russell Westbrook. However, I get it, 45 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, whatever. But the Jazz aren't scared. And I really like the way that the Jazz are playing right now. I mean, they're playing with some of the most electrifying and most entertaining basketball right now, in my personal opinion. And whoever would have thought that they would be performing like this in year number 1 without a guy like Gordon Hayward. The Minnesota Timberwolves get eliminated by the Rockets, per what Coach just told us. What does that one-loss coach say about the Houston Rockets? Like, I don't want to dwell on it too much, but a lot of us thought the Rockets would probably go ahead and sweep the Timberwolves, not even giving them a chance to win one game. They came in there and did that, and especially struggled, at some very key moments shooting the ball on yesterday. What would that tell us about the Houston Rockets moving forward, as they can be potentially going up against a very, very good playing with house money Utah Jazz team?
Well, I mean, you can look at it several ways, but I look at Houston as being one of the most talented teams and out there, no doubt. I mean, because they can have a lull, and then all of a sudden, like you said, they can give you 40 points out of nowhere. So they definitely are offensive-minded. So I think that one game really didn't mean anything. But you got Utah over there with OKC. They're in a battle, they're in a war. Whereas Houston's going to be rested up and ready to go.
Paparelli, the reality of it is this. Tomorrow night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I get so sleepy, man. I'm so tired of these late-night 10:30 games on the West Coast. But it should be very entertaining. It's going to be Game 1 of the West semifinals between the Golden State Warriors and, of course, the New Orleans Pelicans, who swept the Portland Trail Blazers. How much concern is there for a team like Golden State, who is kind of in flux with the health of Stephen Curry? Not sure if they'll get him back just yet. And in addition to that, we talked about it the other day. The New Orleans Pelicans is playing some of the best basketball, arguably the very best basketball. They were the very first team, if I'm not mistaken, in the whole playoffs to advance to the second round. How much do the Golden State Warriors have to be concerned about this? And what do you think that we'll take away from Game 1 coming up tomorrow night?
Well, these Kentucky Wildcat Pelicans, New Orleans Pelicans, they just have all those Kentucky players on there. They are doing well. They're heating up and they're doing what they need to do. But I think Golden State's a lot better than Portland. I think a lot of people will agree with me on that. I think Steph Curry comes back within the next 2 to 3 games, and once he gets back, they're all for it and they're all going through it. The rebounding, that's what concerns me. Anthony Davis, I don't think anyone can really compare to guard him or out-rebound him. Draymond can do what he wants. He can play his mind games. He can get his techs. But Anthony Davis is a freak of nature. The brow will make it a little bit of a challenge, but at the end of the day, I think Golden State will still get past them with just a little bit more difficulty than they had to take care of with San Antonio.
That makes a lot of sense. No Boogie Cousins, which is I like to think that if they have Boogie Cousins, they can definitely, give Golden State a better run for their money. I'm just afraid that they'll be asking for a little bit too much or biting off a little bit too much more than they can chew. But, in some cases, I guess Rajon Rondo is kind of a liability because his inability to score the ball. And one thing you have to do against Golden State, you have to be able to score the ball. So if you don't have that out of Rajon Rondo and DeMarcus Cousins is not playing, and I think it's a huge load that you're asking for Drew Holiday up against probably the best team, regardless of maybe not the best seed in the West or best seed in the NBA, but still the reigning NBA world champions. Now, I'm glad that you mentioned Paparelli something about being concerned about rebounding because of the simple fact, coming up later on tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it'll be a Game 6 matchup between the Washington Wizards playing at home in the nation's capital against the Toronto Raptors, where, a lot of people just assumed that the Wizards would be left for dead. John Wall kind of revitalized some things, re-energized himself, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 blocks, 7 turnovers, but got a lot of help from Bradley Beal as well with 20 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. My thing is, when it comes to this game, that we have to keep a close eye on the surrounding cast production, minus Beal and Wall going forward, and I think that'll tell us a whole lot more about this particular series. That's just one of the games. First, Paparelli, and then pass it over to Coach. What happens in this game, a Game 6? If it goes 7, what happens in Toronto? But I think that people are calling for the Wizards' head a little bit, kind of leaving them for dead. I think they have a better chance than people realize. Paparelli and then the coach, Doug Lipscomb.
We're talking about John Wall here, right? We're talking about, that's going to go Game 7. John Wall, Bradley Beal, Gortat, they're all going to put in enough muscle to advance this game to a little Game 7. Every year it feels like a number 1 seed has trouble with a first-round team. Houston already passed by, so I guess it's Toronto's time. Let's get a little bit more whispers about, are they the same old Toronto Raptors? Are they going to be any better? I think they'll take away Game 7, but I think it will be a Game 7 at the end of the day. This series is too good to stop watching, and these two backcourts are just phenomenal.
Coach.
Well, I agree, but I think Toronto's going to go on and handle their business. I just feel like this is their time, and they know what they got to do. And John Wall's, he's going to get his points. That's no doubt. Bill's going to get his points. So I'm going with Toronto to finish it.
Paparelli talked about the rebounding worries. How about the Washington Wizards out-rebounded the Toronto Raptors 50-35 the other night? And, of course, there may be only 15 rebounds, but 14-6 edge offensively and 36-29 on the defensive side. However, if Washington wants to prevent being ousted from the playoffs and sitting out until next year, they got to do a little bit better than shooting 19%. Also, Otto Porter, his status is unclear due to a bone bruise injury. So all these things, I think, plays a very key piece in this game. Now, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the tip. We're going to go back to see the the king, LeBron James, if you will, the Cleveland Cavaliers, obviously being the 4 seed up against the Indiana Pacers, the 5 seed. We touched on it a little bit briefly. What happens in Indiana, because they're a totally different team in Indiana, and playing at Cleveland, people aren't afraid to play the king at the King's Palace. Now they're going back to Indiana. Lance Stevenson, the crowd's going to be pumped. Victor Oladipo is pumped. What can we expect from this game, and who do you guys give for a prediction or a projection? First up, Coach. Second up, Paparelli.
You said the King dropped the bomb on him the other night at the buzzer. Okay, I got you. I'm going with Cleveland, no doubt. He's in a whole nother zone, and he's playing at a whole nother level. He played defense the other night and, of course, offense. So he's playing both ways, which people sometimes act like that's new to the game, but it's not. So I'm going with Cleveland.
I'm taking a look over at that game from the other night, and I think LeBron just broke the Pacers' back. I think him going over there and showing that emotion, it's just like when you look back at the finals a few years ago when he screamed, "Let's go," and took the court, everyone knew that he was about to win that game. LeBron's going to take away this, and he's just, he hasn't lost a first-round series in how long? He's got this.
Yeah. Totally agree. You're listening to Real Life Basketball right now, where we're keeping it real, always keeping it 100, not 100, 100. You ain't keeping it 100, stay from around me. Straight up and down, man, keeping it real. No ifs, no ands, no buts. We're not lateral movement. We're straight up vertical, straight up and down. Elevator, escalator. 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Just like that. Slick Nick Paparelli, at Nick Paparelli on Twitter, at NICK Paparelli. Is that right?
That sounds about right. I think that was enough vowels and consonants.
Perfect. And last, of course, we got the legend, the general, the coach, Doug Lipscomb, coached so many great NBA players. Everybody from Jaylen Brown, Sharif Abdurrahim, so many others, tons of basketball knowledge. I'm just merely Deshaun Tate. We've already had a chance to hear from Samad Hines, talk about some of the AAU circuit going on around Atlanta here this upcoming weekend in the Adidas grassroots, rather. And finally, for our last little piece of our NBA segment, the Utah Jazz, Oklahoma City. Utah went up 3-1. Oklahoma City came back in a nail biter, had to deal with a ton in order to get that win. But they're still hanging. However, they got to go to Utah. Utah is still the same Utah that it was back when Stockton and Malone was playing. A really, really tough place to play. They've been getting it together under head coach Quinn Snyder. I'm not sure that I'm ready to say that I'm giving the Utah Jazz the game tonight, per se. But I will say as much to say that they cannot allow OKC to stay in the game. I mean, they were up yesterday by close to 15 points and blew the game. And that was somewhere late in the third quarter, early part of midway through the fourth quarter before OKC start coming back around. They can't afford to do that. You have to blow this thing wide open on your home court, 20 to 30 plus, if you want to get rid of OKC, because if not, OKC comes in there, they steal a win. Now the series is tied 3-3 going back to OKC, and you've got three of their big three superstars here in the NBA. I'm afraid that they're going to run away with it. Paparelli and then the coach before we get into some NBA head coaching vacancies and occupancies.
Yeah, looking at it on paper, I want to say OKC is going to come back, take it away, but my heart just keeps screaming Donovan Mitchell. If he takes this series and he goes in the next round and he challenges the Rockets, I'll tell you what, I'm going to buy his jersey. I think he's excellent. He put up, 22 points last night, 23 points. He just keeps scoring. He doesn't stop. And that's going to be the challenge for OKC. That's a young gun that's ready to go. Westbrook has a chip on his shoulder, has something to prove. Paul George, I don't know if he's still paying attention about the NBA playoffs or looking over at LA. And I have no idea if Carmelo Anthony can play in the playoffs still. It still hasn't shown anything. I think the Utah Jazz will take this home, and we might see a coaching change over at OKC after this.
The coach.
Hey, I'm going to tell you just like this. Not too long ago, I think I told you all I thought Mitchell was my rookie of the year, and he's definitely making a statement for that. So, I like Utah, and I'm going to tell you right now, Deshaun, you're very, very up to date, and you got a lot of knowledge of the game, whether it be AAU, high school, college, pros. But I want y'all to check this out. Quinn Snyder, he's one of the coolest coaches in the NBA. He got the little hair flopping down on the side. He throws it back up, and they winning. So he's very, very intense. So I like that. So like I say, it's Utah.
Now jumping over to some breaking news within the last 24 hours, where one of the NBA's organizations, as in the Atlanta Hawks right here, local, decided to part ways mutually from the understanding of the current general manager, Travis Schlenk, between he and Mike Budenholzer, and the Atlanta Hawks and Mike Budenholzer. That being said, I'm just going to run on a couple things that he mentioned during his press conference on earlier today. And then we can evaluate from there, of course, and get into potentially some ideal coaches that may fit the system. Travis Schlenk mentioned that he wanted to thank Coach Bud for his services, and that making it clear to everyone that it was a mutual decision, that this was the right time for he and the Atlanta Hawks to part ways. And it wasn't just one thing that led to the release. And that was one thing that was interesting to me. It's also saying that several conversations were held leading up to the release, and that there's still 2 years left remaining on the contract for head coach Mike Budenholzer. He mentioned that the Atlanta Hawks have no regrets, and that they haven't spoken to any candidates currently but we'll do so in the next few hours. I think one of the biggest things in terms of this is that they wanted to make sure that they were reaching out to coaches while they were still around and hot, and instead of kind of waiting it out, holding on to Coach Budenholzer a little bit, and then all the ideal coaches were then taken up at that point. They also mentioned that, there are a list of potential coaches to hire that they are looking at and targeting that are both experienced and doesn't necessarily have the experience coaching within the NBA. Who knows? That might be a Jerry Stackhouse. Me personally, guys, I would like to see a Sam Mitchell, and I might be a little bit biased because he's a former colleague of mine and an outstanding guy. I know David Fizdale's out there. Who knows who else? I think Jerry Stackhouse, maybe Jason Kidd's out there. Mark Jackson's out there. There's quite a few names. First, starting out with Coach, you've been around these NBA coaches and players and around the game for such a long time. What do you make of the release from the guy, the head coach and his system that got this franchise to the most wins? I think it was, a 60 win season a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, the most that there's ever been. That's the career high for the organization. What do you make of the release? What does that say about the organization? On top of that, was it the right decision? And who do you look forward to being an ideal guy for them to bring in?
Well, being a coach more than 30 years of my life, I never like to see anybody have to part ways. When they say it's a mutual decision, okay, I'll give them that. But at the end of the day, when you get a divorce, that's a mutual decision as well at the end of the day. But I like the fact that he has 2 years on his contract, so I don't think he's going to be hurting monetarily. The next move for them, when you mention a person like Jason Kidd, who's a Hall of Famer and knows the game very well. You also mentioned Mitchell, and Jackson. But I like Kidd because he's been around the game and he knows how to play the game, and he's the kind of guy that's going to develop a team, and he's not going to worry about attitudes. So, and just think about it. This league is what have you done for me lately? Like you say, Budenholzer, most wins of any Hawk coach, and 2 or 3 years later they're saying, we don't need you anymore. But that's the nature of the beast. So what do you think, Nick?
I think it's about time. I want to ask some questions. Hey, Deshaun, what did we get for Damari Carroll?
Toronto, I don't think a whole lot of anything.
Nothing. What did we get for Al Horford?
Definitely didn't get
What
anything.
did we get for Jeff Teague? Not that much. We had a chance to build and build and build and be a young team, and he wanted to be the GM and the coach, and we paid him like that, and now we have nothing. Now we are tanking to get a top 5 draft pick.
What'd you get for Crowder?
What did we get? Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good one on that. But I think it is about time that he wants to go. That it was time for us to part ways. I really did like Bud. He was a good guy. He did make a good culture there. He did give us 60 wins. He did set the franchise record in wins. He did do a lot. But as the coach says, it's the nature of the beast. We might have had the longest playoff streak out of NBA team, but there needed to be a change, and that's the direction we're going in. I don't think Bud had the patience to sit there and watch us just be mediocre for a little bit longer. Thinking about potential coaches that can change out with him, I keep saying Utah Jazz beats OKC. I hope Billy Donovan gets fired for that. We grab him. Another person that's a reach, but another person that I think about that could make another jump is Avery Johnson at Alabama. He just had Colin Sexton leave his team, and he just had Petty leave his team, who Petty was who was the best player in Alabama. His recruiting is doing well, but there's still NBA light, and he is a good coach, and he can develop these young players in the NBA to make us a potential 76er team, a potential Milwaukee Bucks team, just get us back in the spotlight.
Makes good sense. Maybe something I didn't really necessarily think about. I think that it'll be a rebuilding process for the next few years. But I think that this will be something that's really telling. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of guy they can pull in here that can help not only develop these kids, but also relate to the kids. And or I call them kids, and they're grown men, they're adults. However, but their roster is going to be expected to be really, really young over the next few years. So I think all those things are going to be really interesting, and all we can do is wait and see. Want to make sure that I thank everybody that's been able to take the time out to listen. You can catch me on Twitter at Tates Take Sports, TATESTAKE Sports, as well as one of the very talented panel experts here, Nick Paparelli. NICKPAPARELLI. I think I got it that time. And definitely want to thank the legend, the coach, the general Doug Lipscomb as well for just giving his expertise and analysis on the game of basketball. A true blessing for us to be able to have here. Last but not least, on top of that, Samad Hines, Coach Hines. Follow him at Coach Hines 28. And be looking forward to coming out with another podcast in the coming days, talking about our predictions and projections and everything that we've been able to give forth, and the blessing that all of that has been. Looking forward to hearing back from us at that point. See you later.